Hi, everyone. Welcome to Music NFT Archive, where we document and discuss the history and growth of tokenized music. I'm your host, Tor, founder of Music NFT Archive, avid collector of music NFTs, and the artist behind Studio Nouveau, the moniker I began using to mint my own music in 2020. I've been obsessed with tokenized music ever since. Today, we are joined by Mighty33, an artist who was on the front lines of the audio NFT renaissance in 2020 and beyond, and who has also been a dedicated advocate for preserving the history of crypto music. Mighty33, welcome to Music NFT Archive.
Well, thank you very much, Torre. That's an honor to be with you and discuss the history of music NFT and my journey. And yeah, thanks for the invitation and excited to get started. But yeah, that's true. I'm been always very passionate about music, NFT, crypto music in general. Music first.
Oh, absolutely. And just to get started out, can you just tell us about your sort of life and background in the music industry? Give us the context of how you sort of arrived to your, you know, pre-crypto music career.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to make it detailed but simple. But yeah, I started as a pianist student. My grandmother was a pianist teacher all her life, and so very early on, I got to the piano, had to learn. Parents were supportive or pressurizing as well a little bit, but yeah, I was one of those kids where I didn't have really the choice. I was hooked into music very quick, and but I enjoyed it until the teenager age where the classical music lessons were a bit boring and I started getting interested in other music genres. On the other hand, my dad was like having a vinyl shop where he was selling club music and was specialized on doing so for professionals, so DJs, labels, radios, so a very specific type of curation made for night clubbing and his skills was to have an ear about what's gonna be the next hits and sometime help the French label, import some international hits and make some money like that. So I was quite surrounded, and when I started getting out of the music, the classical music lessons, as every teenager in the 2000s, I started doing rock bands, stuff like that. Very quickly, I realized that wasn't gonna work really. So quickly after, I discovered the clubbing music scene that was way more hot because the rock bands started to fade already a little bit at the end of the 2000s. So something more hot, the clubbing scene. So I started, downloading some music software, learning how that works, doing some club music as well. I started getting mentors thanks to the shop of my dad, where I was able to meet a lot of DJs and professionals up to the point where I started composing casually and experimenting with computers and music, basically in general, tweaking things, learning assisted music programmation with computers, and learning how the studio knowledge works, like how to train your ear or basically to mix or be more of a technician sound wise and yeah, the luck of things have made so that the combination between hanging out in the clubbing world and producing at home when I was going back to college, there was a connection with a DJ who enjoyed one of the track I made. So long story short, that track became a hit record for that artist internationally and allowed me to earn my first money really to invest into my own studio basically, so my own computer, my own microphone, my own gears, and all that. because on the journey to be like an independent artist, you meet the problem of having to acquire gears basically, and or find a way so that you don't call a sound engineer every time you do a track, to save some money but also to save some time. And that pushed me forward constantly to master anything that could avoid me calling anyone to make my own music, basically. And
Right. Yeah.
and to the point where I started enjoying producing also others, because I wanted to put the light on some friends or some. And just before that, the hit records plus my environment allowed me, I mean, with my dad and my own exploration as a DJ, to get very close to the music industry. I mean, at Sony Music, then I tried to sign an album with Warner Music. I was hearing every day all sorts of story about all the other labels, and all the, I don't know the word, but like the chit chat about, the inside professional life of the music industry. And the more I was going for it, the less I was attracted, really. And even though I enjoyed every people I met and had pretty much good experience in terms of the personnel, but the way the work was done, I was not really enjoying it, and the mentality and the way artists ended up at, being at the end of the chain for these people who were, basically plotting their success or not, because sometimes, you just end up in a garage and you get signed, but you end up, nowhere. And yeah, I don't know. The more I was going for it, the less I was attracted, to the point where I decided to focus and work only with people that were friends, the people that were around me that I could reach without all the music industry layer. And yeah, that's how we started Genius Corp with my friend, which is sort of a label where we explore the new ways of being labeled, basically. And yeah, that's where we started to get out of the music industry to actually do our own thing and try to shape things in a way we envisioned. And that, thankfully, with time, is slowly taking place. So fast forward 10 years later, we've produced like almost 200 records of young talents that are all, starting in the music industry. Some want to get in, some want to stay out. But our mantra is basically to help as much as possible, give the tools for an artist to remain independent and responsible over his career, avoid mistakes, common mistakes you can make within the music industry, because sometimes it's not going to be easy on you because you look nice or sound nice. So especially when you're young, you need to know if you want to go there, what you will face, and that's what we're trying to prevent as much as possible. But also, we're a lot focused on the production. So the idea is really to give them the tools in their hands so they can, face the world basically with high quality content, and this provided sort of for free or against royalties. So it's a way for them to be able to produce their content to the very high quality, have good consulting, or an overview about uh, the way they want to achieve their goal. And yeah, I'm trying to resume this, but basically with my friend, with Genius Corp, we saw it as a way to give sort of one of the best deal around for a young talent to start without, investing too much money, investing too much time. It's like a straight shortcut for them to. They have great ideas, and together we put them together, and then they just can go around with their music and enjoy the quality of their work and really bypass lots of bad excuses the music industry might bring you, because oh, you're too young, or you're too this, or this music is too not well mixed, or there's 1,000 million excuses possible so that you are halted in your way into the music industry. And most of these excuses generally lies or come from your music. Like, it's easy to find something to say on your music, right? So if you make the music so that there's not much to say, it will probably help you, navigate around, and also post on social media, have more reaction, like gives a professional tint to your production, and that was the goal basically. And so the last chapter of that is 2018, discovering crypto music, because I was what's the word, depressed. I think I could say depressed. For another reason, which was I was so passionate with music and so passionate about uh, learning the skills. Basically, I wanted to be amongst the best producers across the world, and at least learn what it takes to get at this level. So I started studying. I continued studying, thanks with the money I got from the hit record. I was able to basically pay myself 10 years of study at home in the way I wanted. And so I exploited this to the fullest. And to me, the luck of having internet basically really was it. It Because on one hand, I could, have the time to learn the music skill and get deeper into the psychology of music, and I mean, it's already complex enough. Uh, but on the other hand, I was also passionate about the music industry and to understand how this works and how we can do or not something about it. And the deeper I learned about the music industry, once again, the more I was, repulsed and, and wanted to do something about it, basically.
Yeah.
So I won't get too much into the detail of this here, but basically, I became a conspiracist, and then and then yeah, it goes along the way we do things with Chiniscope in the term where it's protective. Like, we just sometimes it's heartbreaking to see artists being lost in within the music industry, uh, because you're kind of wasting your time or losing sometimes your soul as well, and many things can happen. And not saying this cannot happen in real life or in whatever circumstances around, but the music industry likes to vampire your energy. And yeah, that's something I don't wish for young artists that are not conscious about this. If you're conscious and you want to go, fine. But just if you're not conscious and you think it's going to be all cool, well, if you're a good person, I don't wish you that. And there's ways before you get there, and you have time. You don't have to precipitate into this that you don't necessarily understand. Take your time to understand it, and if you really like it, fine. Just make sure you know where you are heading. So so yeah, that's why I was depressed in a sense, because there was no solution to the music business. You In 2017, you distribute your music on the streaming platform, but that's it. You can press maybe some CDs, you can press some vinyls, you can make some concerts, some live gigs, but the only solution at the time to release music, if you are not in the digital trenches yet, is really the streaming platforms. And so the music industry, because the streaming platform already was hooked with the major labels taking their cut and all that. So there was no way out, and I was thinking like, that's it. There's nothing else. How are we gonna do? And so that was kind of depressing. But that's when I discovered the blockchain, and suddenly my mood changed, and I was like, this is the solution.
Yeah.
And I started to dive in. Up to this day, just experimenting because yeah, it was the beginning of something, and beyond the concept, nothing was really there. There was too much. There was a few things, but we will be able to talk about it after. But at least there was hope.
Right, right. That's such a great starting point. You really covered everything I was hoping you would. But I do want to double click on a couple things with Genius Corp. When exactly did you start Genius Corp again? Like around what time was that?
In 2012,
Yeah, I gotcha. And can you it's kind of interesting to me, a lot of the sort of pioneers of crypto music that I've spoken to already, a lot of them have like this similar experience of like sort of coming up through this incredibly transformational time in music, just the early 2000s and the 2010s. It just I feel like it was such a destabilizing time for recorded music. And so when you started Genius Corp, like what was the landscape like? How were you sort of having artists release things at that time? Uh, were you shepherding them towards streaming, or like, could you give your perspective about what things were like at that point, if that makes sense?
sure, I can describe how it was like, but it was the early days of the streaming era, and so first distributing on streaming platform wasn't so easy. There was not distros like we have today. The you had There were distros, but they were kind of reserved to the professionals, so like the major labels, or you had to had a company basically to be able to distribute your music on iTunes at the time, and the few platforms that were available. So it was more of like a SoundCloud game or a YouTube game, because that's where really it was the most accessible for us to be. And on top of that, with my friend, we were really, into the internet thing. So it was blogs, it was a little bit of social media, and we still don't have that much of a very clear strategy about how we like to release stuff, because um, more and more it seems like it depends on the environment. And still today there are some artists that are more over Instagram, some that are more over Twitter, some that are more on NFTs, and others on streaming platforms. And it feels like it's kind of how we started. It was really like finding where people were, and in the like of the kind of music we enjoyed, and trying to share there to meet with an audience that we enjoy the taste of, basically. Then the distro started being more accessible, and we could find good deals where it was possible for us to distribute for the artists we were working with without a fee for them and for us, which was in the continuation of the way we build our service. And yeah, I think it was pretty much it. It's always been following where things are exciting, basically online, and we had the luck to have internet. So I say this a lot because really I think about it every day. what would be life if we wouldn't be at this point in time without such a technology. And I'm 34, so I grew up with the early internet. And I don't know, I think to some degree, some people overlook it still to this day and don't realize the potential it has if you use it properly. So that's been an important part of our journey. Or our journey as a Genius Corp is really, maybe there's a way we don't communicate as others do. We just like to resonate more than making noise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. That's really interesting. And so, why don't we now talk about how you became interested in crypto and blockchain technology? Like in the entire sector of crypto, like what was the first thing that came onto your radar, and like when?
Um, I mean, the first thing is Bitcoin. It was the bull run of 2017, and it was not necessarily the money. It was the I have an uncle that works in computers, and I think he mentioned it at the lunch. So I was curious because I've heard about it before, like once, but I had no clue what it was. And yeah, I got curious. I started to look at it. So I understood quite quickly the concept of the blockchain and realized there was like some sort of derivative, like that was not only Bitcoin. And there was all sorts of ICOs and different blockchains that were doing different stuff. And I felt like I had to understand that. So I started diving, and on the way, I found Music Coin. And that's the moment I thought, that's the first coin I bought ever. And that's the first time I thought, wow, that's the future. I'm gonna be super rich. And that's the first bag I totally lost to zero, basically. So that was the first experience in trading, but also in learning how a blockchain project, what it takes to carry it on, because there's a lot, and especially in their case where they were even carrying their own blockchain and they had to mine it, and that's what caused their death because there was no hash rate available at the end and no transaction possible, and so the whole thing really struggled until it died.
Oh, no, that's
So
interesting. Um, and so the idea of music coin sort of sparked this inspiration in you, it sounds like, to, like that's something you could latch on to, was like, oh, music and blockchain. Is that really sort of, was that a spark of like starting to think about these things?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could see it. I'm probably always way too early in my mind, but it's like the concept clicked right away in my mind. I was like, some people stream, um, 2 seconds or 5 seconds or 1 minute. Only this time is being paid via the token by the blockchain automatically with smart contracts and all that. I was like, this is everything we need to fix within the music industry, and no intermediaries. Of course, there might be fees, but the fees is going for the network or a little bit for the company or the developers. Like all this makes super sense. You could already back then split. If I upload a track and made it with a friend, I could already by then split it and have the blockchain automatically send the funds to the right address. These were all ideas we were already having in our head with a Genius Corp, where we were like, this is how we want to operate, basically. Because one of our main thing is always has been, I mean, we don't want to manage the money for artists. It's one of our crucial point, and we had to some degree here and there, because nothing was completely perfect up to this day, which is becoming way better. Uh, but we don't want to distribute the music for artists. We want to help them distribute music, sure, but we don't want to collect the money and then split it and resend them. That's something we don't want to deal with. And we always felt somehow deep inside that we won't have to at some point. It's just the tech isn't there yet. The features to do so isn't there yet. And so it was there in the blockchain concepts, the early ones. It was already there. That was the case with Emanate, which was sort of competition with Musicon, or the same concept, which is really pure streaming based blockchain service. And yeah, all these ideas were already present in these concepts, and that's what really attracted me without a doubt. And I wanted to try these, and I wanted to highlight these and just showcase what we could do, how this is what we expect coming from the traditional era into the digital era, and as an artist, but also as a label, like how do you plug all these technologies so that you can focus on creation and everyone can go home and everyone gets paid as it should. Um, yeah, pretty basic in the end, pretty simple, but that's not that easy when you go in the traditional industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, with Genius Corp, did you actually try to like implement Music Coin, or did you did you just simply buy and hold the coin, or did you actually try to like test it out at all with Genius Corp, or was it mostly just a you know buy and hold, be excited about it, and it just sort of inspired ideas?
That was both. I was first there was a need to try it all, so in all psychological aspect of the thing, like of course buying a little bit, holding, but also trying the service. I'm a natural debugger, which means that each time I open a software, I'm very likely to make it bug because I like to click everywhere to see how resilient it can be to, a degen like me. And that led me to programming later down the road. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed to try the software and Musicoin. I wanted to earn Musicoin, not buy them. I wanted to put my music, and also try it with a larger cluster with Genius Corp. So I started uploading our catalog on there and see what it's like. And we started to have streaming based on the organic community there was at the time. And I earned Musicoin on the platform. I have no idea where they are now, but that was uh, that was one of my things. It was really testing, and up to this day, I'm testing all the platforms, see where are the flows, where are the positive points, and the different combinations every initiative brings. Because I'm waiting for the ultimate one. That's something like that. I'm waiting for the thing that will do it all, but the it's a lot. So I know I'm asking and I have a very high level of expectation that we maybe might not reach until 10, 20 years. I have no idea, but I cannot predict exactly. I just realize how much there is to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when was this around? Was this like 2018 that you were experimenting with Music Coin? Is that about right?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yes.
So in 2018 and 2019, what were you? What else? Were you aware of any other music applications that were being tested at that time? Or what was on your radar, if anything else?
There was a little bit timid, but didn't explore it much. It was really around streaming based blockchain apps. So yeah, it was the early days of Musicoin and then Emanate. Uh, I kind of came late on the NFTs because I wasn't deep enough in the blockchain to get that this was coming. So I remember another service that was based on XRP, which was like a music coin as well, so streaming based, reward with XRP, but there was just like the beta and it closed. It didn't last very long. So it was like early applications like that, but nothing really substantial. But in my mind, it was obvious that the streaming based thing would be the main application. But when NFT came around in 2018, 2019, that was the early days of NFTs, but the music NFTs really started, in my view, as, ERC 721 in late 2019, 2020.
Right. Once people
And
started tokenizing audio, whether it be MP4 or then actual audio files. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And this, it was kind of a question mark in my mind because I was not expecting that to happen, and that's not even a concept that was in my mind, sort of, like, because I was limited to the way we were at in music at this time, so it's like basically streaming only, and I didn't realize that we could have NFTs basically, and it took me some time to grasp the entirety of the concept of buying and selling, copies. Like at the end of the day, there was really enough analogy for me to get how this was as important. But still, to this day, I don't get how this is more important than streaming-based, development, platform development, and I'm quite surprised that there isn't a, a big streaming initiative, blockchain based. So uh,
Yeah.
I, yeah, it's like NFTs truly outshined the streaming blockchain development, and and when there is some, it's more like, oh, make your playlist from your NFTs, but there's no mechanism to reward you on the plays. I'm not saying that maybe it should absolutely exist, or if this is the best way to to pay for music. It's not necessarily what I'm saying, but I'm finding it curious that there hasn't been more effort into this very specific type of feature, like just streaming then paid on by the coin of the chain. Of course, this is then tied to speculation of the coin and all that, which is also another problem. So,
Yeah. I agree. I think I also feel that it seems like it should be pretty low hanging fruit. And maybe it's a matter of like scalability, maybe sort of like layer one Ethereum or Bitcoin. It's sort of like the cost per transaction has been a limiting factor. So maybe as sort of layer twos or sort of things like Solana keep, growing, maybe that application will be built. But I agree. It seems like I'm surprised that it is not really a something that has been really worked on a lot at this point.
yeah, and even be quite big already. I mean, there was this sort of issue where I feel like we've been misled by some of the actors that were claiming to provide that and never provided it. I can mention Odious in that case, where the early days of Odious, I think everyone understood from the promotion that this was what they were aiming to create. But it turned out over the years that this is not the case, or maybe it will be one day. I don't know, but the maybe the faith for that will be gone. I don't know.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, I mean, I think it's to be fair that it's important to say that Audius is an example of someone who is working on this. I guess that's outside the purview of what I'm qualified to talk about, but
Hmm.
it's certainly people are working on it. That to be fair.
Hmm.
Um, so. Getting back into the timeline here, so from what I could tell, on May 15th, 2020, it looks like you minted a set of images called Faces of God on the Rarible shared contract. Were these the very first NFTs that you minted?
They might be, but I couldn't tell you for sure exactly which one is the very first. I remember at the time also playing with a platform on the Zilliqa blockchain, where I minted a few tracks, but that was at the same time, and they kind of got lost. I think I could find the link of them somewhere, but there's no really no activity over there. But the first NFTs were on Rarible for sure. That's the first platform I truly enjoyed and discovered most of the early crypto art people.
Yeah. In terms of that, the Mintable app, are you talking about the piano album? Why, or is this something else?
No, that's it. And you're right, that was Mintable.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
gotcha. Um,
I think one of the earliest as well was on Mint Base. There was a contract as well where I minted a few. I don't know if you know them, like the sound waves, like scene wave, pink wave, pink noise, white noise. Um, I've
yeah,
made it. Yeah, these ones.
I do have all that queued up, and so basically what I did was, if you look at your artist wallet on like OpenSea,
Hmm.
you can see everything that your wallet created, and basically if you sort by age, it sort of puts everything in order.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um, and basically the oldest NFTs on that wallet are these images, these image NFTs that you
yeah.
made in May 15th, 2020, which is kind of an interesting time because it's like right as the pandemic is setting in 2020. And I guess I'm kind of wondering, like, what do you remember what inspired you to begin actually minting your own NFTs at that point?
Sure. So I can extend a little bit on what happened, what crossed my mind in that period. But I think one of the first thing I discovered that truly blew my mind was crypto voxels. That's where I learned about crypto artists first, and then I ended up on Rarible and doing all these things. But I remember one of the main reason I wanted to mint something was because I wanted to hang it on the wall in crypto voxels. Because at the time, somewhere around that time, I bought a crypto voxel land. And I didn't know enough about crypto voxels. I didn't realize you could simply put an image on the wall. I thought you had to make them NFTs to put them on the wall. So I was like, then okay, I'm gonna try mint an NFT. So I had those images, which originally was made for a music video for a friend, but the music never came out for different stories. And so I had these images which I enjoyed, and I made 3 screenshots. The faces of God, which is my head on a galaxy background, singing the. They were doing the playback of the song, but now it's just a still image. And I minted them just to try and be like, this is an art piece. So I was looking at myself like, okay, I created an art piece. This is now an NFT. So I was just like zooming out and trying to look at what I was doing, trying to understanding as I was doing it. And I made that mistake straight after I never deleted those NFTs, but would probably see them in my wallet. Is cover albums, and some that looks like cover albums, and they were albums from Genius Corp production at the time. And I just wanted to hang them on the wall of the crypto voxel space that I wanted to organize like a little music shop to present our work. And so, yeah, I started minting album covers, and I did two, three, four to the point where I realized many things. The first, I could simply use images. I realized that down the line. But the second one is it's going to cost a lot because it was cheap compared to some gas period we've known in the Ethereum blockchain. But it was still $2 for each mint, and $2, $3, $5, and I realized I'm not gonna mint 200 cover albums, and then after, what am I gonna do of them? I cannot split them, split the sales, or I at the time it was also so early that I couldn't even talk really to my friends or the artists in question about it. I was just thinking ahead to do some promotion on in the virtual world, but I had no intention to sell them or whatever. It was just to hang them on the wall, literally. So that's how these first NFTs were made. It was kind of by mistake, but also I was very curious to learn the process of minting and how this new environment works. And you're right, it appears to be exactly at the time of the COVID lockdowns. And I remember that was really a hit for me to double down on this journey because there was pretty much nothing else left to do. And I found that niche, which was to me the quintessential place where I wanted to be and where all the answers I was looking for were. And I wanted to understand it as much as possible and be part of it. And so that inspired me also. That time period inspired me. That album, Others Die, which was made within this month of the same year. And then, I mean, this album in particular was surrounded with a broader idea to present music and blockchain in general. So I've made an entire sort of extended description and organization around the album to exploit all the tools that were available at the time. So streaming, NFTs, virtual worlds, um, distribution through traditional distro, through the blockchain, stuff like that. And yeah, I really wanted to put all that research and discoveries into one project to highlight the capabilities and really incarn what it would look like as an artist to be 100% blockchain in 2020.
Yeah. So there's so much great info in there. And, just stepping back a second, it's really interesting that you mentioned that crypto voxels is what sort of sent you down the NFT rabbit hole, it sounds like, because pretty
Yeah.
much exactly what happened with me too. Like in early 2020 as well, Decentraland land was the thing that made me, I had been in crypto since like 2017 as well, but I hadn't really got too into NFTs until I actually purchased Decentraland land, and that was sort of the thing that made
Hmm.
me be like, "Oh, this is what it feels like to own a digital, non-fungible thing." So that's really interesting. And I also saw those album covers from Genius Corp, and so I was definitely curious about what those were about. And that's so interesting that it was like your way of getting it into to the record shop. And so and that's something that I was going to bring up as well is that you have this really awesome record shop in CryptoVoxels. When did you make that build originally? Was that around that same time, or um, I guess it must have been if you were hanging these up, right?
Yes, it was definitely at the same time. It came progressively because I didn't had the full ID straight away. But I knew I had my own little place in that digital land. It was my free space. Like for once, that's particular, but you could truly feel like, oh, this place I can do whatever I want. So of course I'm not going into the illegal stuff. So I'm thinking whatever I want in within the range of things you do in normal life. And so I truly felt free there. also in a sense, maybe that's good to highlight because we had an Instagram page at the time, different networks. And I remember that it's always been sort of a debate with artists and with my friend to be careful about what you post, to overthink it almost. Because the social network started to be so much important that you cannot post everything. If the music is not good enough, it's not going to bring enough like or stuff like that. And that crypto voxel space delivered me from all this tyranny in a sense. And I was like, I can really, that's what I mean by I can be free and do it, start from scratch really, because there was no expectation over this space. No one is coming and expecting you to have it done well or professional or whatnot. There's no expectation with this space, so you can truly start from scratch and you redesign the perception of yourself in a truly new way, but also in a way that we have room until anyone comes in and say, "Oh, you should do it like this or like that," or you know. So that was for me liberating to experiment music promotion, because that's really what I intended with the shop, to highlight our work, but yeah, in a very creative way. So I inspired from my dad's vinyl shop and recreated something very similar from his shop, but on the wall there were the records we produced until then, and I continued to develop the shop in that direction. So at one point, it took me a couple of months to get to something that was really started to look a little bit sexy for me and exciting to show around, especially the idea of making events in crypto voxels was exciting to me, uh, because again, within the COVID lockdowns, it was exciting to hang out with friends, even though it was only new people that you meet online in that digital space and that you don't know neither their name or their face or anything about them. Is just this was liberating too, like the pseudonymity of the time and the anonymity in a way um was truly good fun, and I enjoyed tapping into that energy. That was super inspiring for me creatively, and but also to foresee the coming times, because I realized that all that was super early, and that I don't know, in 10, 20, 30 years we will see the metaverse in another way, I think. But yeah, that's how the music shop came together, up to a point where I switched the music shop into the crypto music museum,
Right, right.
um, because I needed a place to make this project. And so from 2018, when I started to basically learn about music and blockchain, was in the back of my mind taking notes of everything. So at one point, I realized that not only I was doing that, but it corresponded to my, I don't know, inspiration, passion of really truly enjoying the art I was discovering, and but also the history of music, because to get me there really was following the thread of the music history. I mean, when it comes to becoming a super producer or being able to create your label or being able to basically master the different practices in a wide range there exist in music creation and music business. um, without being interested in music history that is quite complex to get to a very high level. And naturally, I wasn't even planning on doing it, but I kept making sense of everything I was seeing. And every beat was making even more sense and helped me foresee pretty much accurately the way in which things were heading at. And so at one point, I had sort of like the map of everything I was witnessing, but very quickly realized that, and it's paradoxal. I would be curious to have your point of view on this very matter, but it's on the blockchain, so it's there forever. But somehow you feel like all of this is going to be lost in 1 or 2 years in terms of, you know, collective consciousness or something like that. So that's how I realized I wanted to make the Crypto Music Museum. Is that uh, I felt like everything I was seeing was so important to me in terms of music history to be like in the history books, but I felt like this meaning that this very unique thread that I'm developing myself and through which I see the thing unfolding will be lost. All the pieces won't be lost, but the story and the connection and how to make sense of it might be probably lost in a sense where it's not that it's lost, it's just it needs work to be highlighted properly, but also to resist the more mainstream adoption that will probably, you know, come there when the ecosystem is mature and not care necessarily about what happened before. So I guess it's the same thing with the internet. Back then, like most of the internet is quite lost, but for the ones who had made a little, at least a little bit of this work to preserve some of its history, I think it's crucial today to be able to go back to this reference so we understand better where we come from and where we go.
Yeah. And I remember, the work you were doing to sort of record different things that were going on, different projects. And I definitely felt similarly too. It for me, it kind of came from curiosity. It was sort of like, well, what has been done? Like, what are people doing? And so I definitely remember the both of us trying to make a considered effort to sort of like write things down and record
Hmm.
things, and it extends to what we're doing right now too. So.
Sure.
And we'll come back to this, what we're talking about, but zooming back a little bit. So, thinking about Others Die, on June 15th, 2020, you minted an NFT called Mighty Medusa, which is the cover for the album Others Die. And so you mentioned that there was a month around this time that you were sort of recording and creating the album. Can you sort of tie this together for us a little bit? So what were you thinking when you minted this NFT, and then when were you actually started to dig into this album and creating it?
Well, I think I really started. I remember my mind truly shifting during the lockdowns, doubling down in terms of that was going. In my mind, the situation worldwide was resonating a lot with the the conspiracy brain I was, in the making, and that's what made me double down. Is that in one way, I sort of felt that what was going on was not necessarily real in terms of the fear. I mean, the fear that was projected worldwide was a bit manufactured and or amplified by the modern media system and the politics across the world. So I was in fear about the situation. Uh, I think, like anyone else, really with a genuine fear somehow in myself. But I knew that this was not. I should not take it as it's. given to me, and I should be vigilant to not fall completely for everything I I was hearing. And but also I realized that we are all going to be sort of quiet for a few months, all home, and suddenly all your obligations disappears, and you have free time to do, free time for yourself. And I really wanted to do some music, but also express that intense energy, and that basically to capture also that energy that was going through me, of between vigilance and, you know sort of also want to be like a sort of whistleblower without really being one, but at least calling out stuff I was saying, but also, yeah, creating as much as possible. So I remember every day recording stuff, or different ideas. I think the cover art of Others Die is simply me discovering, using that, picture of the character with the helmet, the main picture of Mighty33. I've mostly used in as a profile pic, and put it into photo mesh, which I discovered thanks to Rob Ness in Crypto Voxels, and Max Osiris, and crypto artists that were promoting this easy tool which is called photo mesh. And I dragged and dropped my Mighty33 profile pic character into photo mesh, and quickly got that result of that sort of Medusa, because I'm more and more into working on design, on visual art, as a hobby. I mean, for the fun, because I truly enjoyed taking that route now and exploring that side of things, because I need to learn new things. And but I never really was a visual artist at all, and never had that much material to work with my music. So I was pretty much always playing with the same files and just distorting them in many ways, and see if I could get some interesting results. But that's how the cover art of Others Die was made. I think if you look at it enough, you can see that the character just mirrored and then waved and then, glitched, and all that. But that's the main PFP with the helmet that is just distorted. But yeah, I remember going intensely for a couple of months, just creating until I got the list of tracks I enjoyed. And once it was ready, the bigger focus was on the framework to distribute it with the blockchain and all that, which that took me some time, because all the tools I imagined, everything was not 100% ready. Um, so you had to dig to find the places where to do the NFTs and stuff like that, because I was already careful about the you know the minting contract, for example. I realized that artists were either minting a contract on a third-party platform, like minting a Rarible contract or OpenSea contract, stuff like that, or even minting on their contract, on the Rarible contract, or on the OpenSea contract, or on the Makerspace. Um, and so that's what unveiled me how this was kind of working, bit by bit. And I wanted to have like my own contract, which wasn't something as easy as today. Like you can do it with Manifold, for example, which is a tool I truly my favorite tool in terms of that particular ability. But back then it was not available, so there was luckily one team that was working on that, which was the NFT 42 team, and they started minting platform, which was called Infi NFT, which allowed you to create your own contract. And you could already create your own contract on Mintbase or even the others, but I don't know. I felt like I wanted something which to me would feel truly clean, and this was what provided what Infinity NFT provided for me. Unfortunately, the platform was not sustained, and only a couple of works have been minted through this platform. But everything in what I've done was independent. Like the contract was custom and mine, and then I minted the album on it. But that's pretty much the only thing that will ever be minted on that contract now. But
Right.
because I don't necessarily have access to the minter, and I'm sure there might be a way to reaccess it without the website, but I don't haven't digged that yet. I'm not sure I want to. So
Well, I guess it's the good thing about, the useful thing about NFTs is that, the token and the data is all there. You can always spin
yeah,
up a new front end for any of it. Um, and so I guess one thing I'm wondering is like, in terms of the actual creation of the album, like, do you remember when you finished recording the album? Because there was a lot of people involved in that album, right?
right. I think the demos were done pretty in the same batch. I mean, it was during the summer because I started basically the process of the album in March, but it was mostly composing tracks and all that. But by the summer, and at the same time, I was exploring cryptovoxels, really started to map what was existing in music, what was and beyond, because I was then exposed to many type of art which I had no knowledge or particular affinity with, and I wanted to learn. So I opened myself to anything that was not music, and just was curious about how people were making stuff in general. And I was one of the most amazing feeling was the level playing field. Is that you are with musicians, you are with visual artists, you are with, and we're all in the same sort of market, because that's what it is. But we're all in the same place, and that's exciting. That's opening new perspective, because in any field you work in, creatively or in art, you often end up with the same like-minded people, which is a good thing as well. But you tend to lose the opportunity or to mix with other type of artists across the world in different sections of art. And I was truly amazed and super inspired by that. So I had a little bit of a thing where I was like, oh, these NFTs have visuals and music, so I have to do something like that, basically, which wasn't necessarily natural for me, but I was really excited also to meet people and have fun with other artists to create together and invite people on collaborations and stuff like that. So I remember, starting to map out what was existing in the space, and I started contacting other people in the music space, basically, and that's the album was just made at the same time, and that was for me like a good invitation to send to other people to connect and create together. And that's how I started to invite other musicians and pioneers to create on that album with me, basically. So there were music
Yeah.
artists who did some featurings, such as Connie Digital and Bendel and Unknown Misery. And there's also Kat Gali and Ryan Carr, which are artists we work with in Genius Corp. So they are not related to the crypto art space, but I wanted to mix also the collaboration and not only have people from the crypto art space. And on the visuals, I invited a few artists to work on some covers. Most of the cover art of the album I've done myself, but if you realize some are creations, but most are the same PFP image distorted just in another way again. And yeah, I was truly honored and learning the process to collaborate with these artists. So visually, I really want to shout out Tommy and Check and Caddy Harrington uh, because I really enjoyed having the luck to cross their path and learn from them. Um, since 2020, I'm interested in visual art and the history of art in a more broader sense because I was really focused on music, but crypto art kind of opened me to all other type of art, and that's really thanks to the diversity of artists I had the luck to see there.
Yeah, and it's such a good it's such an important point because that's how it was for me too. I mean, crypto art really inspired me to start making my own art too, and I think it undoubtedly, I think for me 2020 is such an underrated year in just the history of like crypto and NFTs especially because it was such an exciting year. I think it was sort of before everything really blew up, but everyone who was there, who found themselves there in 2020, it was I feel like it was just very exciting and everyone knew that we were onto something really special. And like you said, it really inspired. I felt there was like it was such a melting pot of creativity, and whether you were collecting or whether you were creating, you kind of experimented on both sides of things. And
Right.
yeah.
No, just to say a word on this, you're right. There was nothing precise. That I had this idea or vision about this album as a good way for me to create on one hand, but also a way to as an excuse to experiment with that blockchain distribution framework. Um, but I remember that there was no clear method at all. I was doing everything at the same time, learning, collecting, creating, connect, just having fun in a virtual space. It it was all about what are we doing? What are we even doing? There was a long period of you just try things, you throw spaghettis on the wall, and you just wake up the next morning and see what works, what doesn't, what's exciting for you, what's not. But you don't exactly realize what you do, and uh, and I've seen most artists go through that as well, in the sense of creating multiple contracts over time, some doing version 2, version 3 of themselves, even on the social media. And because it was exciting, but you, in retrospect, feel like, okay, this must be organized better. This can be organized better. I need to start fresh again now that I understand the tech. And I'm sure many artists have been through that as well, because you couldn't really have, unless you are, and there were artists like that were realizing what was going on and was able to truly organize themselves good from day one. But I'm thinking in people in the like of the CryptoPunks or stuff like that, where you had to be truly in the trenches to know where things are heading and how this all works. But from anyone who were regular artists like me who discovered this and had to figure it out by myself with the friends, yeah, you have to start over two, three, four times until you get it right. And sometimes you might consider this past work lost. It's not. It's just you have to find a new way to organize it to make it make sense and be as relevant as it should be, because it is. But um, you have to frame it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so just kind of looking ahead a little bit, so based on the Block Explorer information that I could find, it looks to me like it was July 31st, 2020 that that was when you appeared to have minted that the first track for the Y album, the piano album on Zilliqa using the Mintable app.
Mhm.
Um, and so from what I can tell, well, so here's what the description of the token says. It says, this will be the first media file and piano recording on the ZIL blockchain. And it sort of describes the concept of the album. And then it says, collect all 14 tracks for the full album. And I think these were like unlockable tracks, right? So
Yeah.
you would hear the audio if you owned the NFT, and that it would be in the unlockable content of the NFT. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's it. But I believe you have to buy it to listen to it. And I had one buy over this blockchain, but the Mintable app really was a test for that platform. I sort of had interest over the Zilliqa blockchain at the time. I still do, but I was curious that we were able to mint on this blockchain, so I tried it as a crash test. Uh, but I feel like this mint in particular is even for me a little bit lost in the so I've kept it. I've thought many times of reminting this particular album on something like Ethereum, but I don't see it as a necessity. Neither. I don't really know what to do with the situation. I have no rush to either, so I've kept it that way, and for now it's only there. But I'm I've never felt comfortable to mint something twice, even if it's not at the right place or at the right. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I mean, I'm getting more comfortable too. I think there's many ways you can imagine something to have derivatives on different blockchains or even on the same blockchain. I truly more and more consider that you can have the same track. You can remint it with a better video. You can have different layers of quality within the same work. You mint and create editions of different power and different intensity. So I'm leaning more and more into that to find solutions. For example, for this album, but also upcoming work. But until now, no, I haven't done anything particular about it. But then I think it was also the energy of the time to play along the lines of the being pioneers and realizing that here and there some things might not even exist, and you might take the advantage to say, "Hey, I'm the first," and yeah, but I kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah. And it's, the reason I bring it up too is just because,
It
there
was fun.
at that time there were not really many efforts to release albums on the blockchain at that point. So it's sort of, instances like this I like to highlight because it's interesting. So do you think it's possible that that person that bought, well, one of the tracks, is it possible that that blockchain entry on July 31st was when that happened and you uploaded it prior to that? Or I don't know if you recall, but I'm just seeing this July 31st date. So I don't know if that was like when you originally uploaded it or, yeah.
I think it was when I uploaded it, yeah, and the sale happened a couple of weeks after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I have no idea who this was or what. I just saw that particular sale. Um, yeah, I remember the Mintable app was supportive. They had made a comment, or I think it was in the DMs or something like that. But we had a contact, and they were supportive of the move. But you're right. That's something I noticed on the landscape, is that attempts with music were ongoing, but it was really early in the sense where people were just trying. So they're trying with one track or one cover, but the the intention to build a project from scratch to the dimension of something like an album, carefully thought into this kind of release process and all that, was not existing. And that's what I wanted to jump on and take the opportunity to do so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we come to the Genius Corp mint-based contract that you made. So it was like around August 20th, it looks like you began to mint a series of audio NFTs titled Basics of Sound on the Blockchain. And the mints included pure 432 hertz sine wave, pure 432 hertz square wave, sawtooth wave, pure white noise, pure pink noise. And so can you sort of tell us the story behind these mints?
Sure. Like I described just before about the fact that there was no album on the blockchain, I was doing pretty much a survey in my mind of what did exist and did not exist and what was coming on chain. And so, considering that the entire world was about to be digitalized, I don't know, I had fun to create these in a sense of we need the basics of music to be stored on chain. And this is sort of a prehistorical teacher thing where you just realize you need the basics before doing all sorts of all kind of pop music or whatnot. uh, you need to start from the beginning, and I don't know, there was as well for education um, and I don't know, something like making a point as well to maybe I mean, I didn't promote it that much, but the idea I recall was to basically set the foundations of the history of music, but inscribed on chain. And
Yeah.
so waveforms. I remember that all these files are 33-second long, and that was also just a good way for me to kind of be cryptic around the character of Mighty33. And but I don't know. This is how I like to create. I like to be kind of cryptic, but uh, I like also to embed the dimension of research and all these things I'm going through within the creations I do. I mean, the intention. I try to embed the intention within those kinds of moves, and that's how I wanted to, how I got to do this.
Yeah. And you still hold all those NFTs in your wallet, including all the ones we've talked about so far, like the Genius Corp album cover tokens that you mentioned early on. It looks like all of these are still in your wallet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
I,
eh,
I, I've never had the intention to sell those.
yeah.
Um, the album covers for obvious reasons, because I always have in mind to allow myself business if the conditions are met, and by that I mean what I mentioned before about the splits, the having that every participant have their wallet set up and all that. And still to these
Right.
days we're still far from that. I mean, when I look in my local environment, um, of course, in the crypto space, most of the people are set up, but around me, that's really not the case. And as I am working more with people locally. Um, this I've never intended to sell anything if the setting is not uh, like perfectly straight and right.
Sure.
So this was the problem with the album covers, also because they were not really intended to be minted at the first place. I just needed to hang them in cryptovoxels. But for
Right.
this collection of waves on Minbase, I was really more like making a point for myself and for whoever would come across his work. But it was not an art piece that I ever intended to sell or anything. So
Yeah.
the the first thing have sold really was the track from one of the track from Others Die, and the track on the Y album on Zilliqa. But that I was I did consider that like a sort of a test rather than a real sale.
Okay.
I I think someone bought it just to test how it feels to buy on Zilliqa as well. That's kind of how I look at it. But I did make some money in the blockchain before, like Musicoin. I did earn some Musicoin by having some streams. Then on this XRP platform that was super beta and didn't survive, I did sell some music for XRPs. Then I lost the wallet because the wallet as well was experimental, and I lost the XRPs and
Oh.
uh, stuff like that. But uh, yeah,
Yeah.
the real sale that I started to take seriously were the ones of the Others Die album.
And so it was on October 15th, 2020 that you started to mint the NFTs for Others Die. And one thing I'm kind of wondering off the bat is, so these were MP4 mints, and so it was like a video with the track minted to it. And at this time, there was a lot of different ways that people minted, and you know, Mintbase began providing like audio NFT functionality in like early June, and people that sort of sparked a little bit of a renaissance of people playing around with that. And then there were still like unlockable NFTs, like the Y album type that you had made, and others were doing that where you couldn't hear it unless you actually owned the token and went to the unlockable folder for the token. And then there was like DAO Records was doing some tokens that were like 30-minute samples. And I now realize that they were doing that because of file size limitations actually from Mintbase. But so what was sort of, was there a particular thing that inspired you to mint these tracks the way you did?
There's two reasons. The first, the file size limitation. I had a strong conviction that it would increase very fast, so I wanted to wait until I can get, I don't know, something like 500 megabytes minimum. Uh, my files are not that big on that album, but I kind of remember setting myself waiting for those 500 megabytes capacity, and and the only one who provided it was Infinite NFT. Like you said, on Minbase or elsewhere, the limit was really low, somewhere around 10 megabytes, 8 or 10.
Oh
Um,
wow. I didn't realize it was that low. Wow.
it was really low at the beginning. It was so, and that's fine. But I felt like it was gonna increase. I was already seeing on an everyday basis, like you could see news on Twitter to say, "Hey, we have 20 megabytes now, or we have 50," or so it evolved quite fast, and I found that with the Infinity NFT, they allow 500 megabytes. So that was one of the conditions I wanted. Uh, Alongside the custom contract. And those two conditions were met by Infinite NFT, and that's what decided me to get there. Because I remember I wanted to mint the album almost a month and a half earlier, but I waited for that specific thing to mint the tokens. And the second answer to that question is that the how to explain this. simply, but the new way people would consume music, I would say. Uh, in a sense where when I was cruising in crypto voxels or exploring music work in marketplaces, and uh, I realized that the sound and visual effects uh, were going good together in a sense, and we are used to that also in music to have either cover art or music videos, and the type of art I was seeing from this time, there were a lot of loops, audiovisual loops. So 30-second music or 10-second music with like a GIF that was on loop forever. And I remember that I found myself many, many times uh, falling for those in a sense where this is a 10-second loop, but it's been 30 minutes that I'm listening to it, and watching it in the background. So all all of this was very impactful to me to realize that we're not necessarily going to continue to listen to a track from A to Z, uh, uh, or the way we've experienced music traditionally ever in the music industry era. Uh, there was something more hypnotic. There was something because you are, on a CD or on a vinyl, you will never have your cover art move. So this alone, just having not necessarily a music video, but something that illustrates your music and moves at the same time while it plays, and that it's not a music video. That's also aligning with the visualizer trend on YouTube. People are uploading not just their still covers, but they are creating a little something that moves, because you are in that digital era where animation and all that just hook the viewer more. And
Interesting.
the NFT, also what I realized very quick and liked is the okay, you can sell it, and the token is not yours, but you can listen to it indefinitely. The access is not restricted by the money. It's really the intention to collect and realize what it means to collect, whether you have benefits or um, whatever consequences you can have with your token. But the access to the art is infinite, which is paradoxal again with the streaming blockchain-based mentality. So, what does it mean to have a streaming-based blockchain when the NFTs are providing the loop forever for free? It's all a big puzzle to make sense of, but uh, it's still not excluded. But I enjoy the idea to have the NFT fully available, fully animated, and yeah, be like the friends as well who were doing so much cool things that were inspiring me. So it was a level for me to level myself up to that standard, learn what it takes, and how that works, and just learn from it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's such good context, and it's sort of like it shows how early crypto music was really inspired by the ethos of crypto art. I would say, in that you had this
yeah,
idea of anyone can own it, or well, sorry, anyone can see it. One owns it. That was like the Hackatow saying,
yeah,
which
yeah,
then we would apply to like anyone can stream it or listen to it. One owns it, or one own, you own one, in addition. So that's really interesting that, uh, I can tell that you were influenced by that sort of crypto art ethos, it sounds like. Um, and so, uh, and that's the other thing too. You mentioned, 2020, really what audio visual art was sort of like the form factor that was really popular at that time.
yeah.
Um, And so that's interesting that that sort of influenced the process as well, and it did for me, and I think a lot of people at the time as well. Um, and so looking at these NFTs though, so I just want to read the description, and you also gave this context, which was interesting, that you intended to mint the NFTs a month earlier, and so the NFT description says, or at least for each one, like the first one says, track 1 of 14 from Mighty33 Others Die album, out September 10, 2020, part of a blockchain only album release experiment conducted by Genius Corp. Cover art by Mighty33. And then it sort of links to the info. Um, and so that explains that description, right? It's sort of, you did you actually put it on streaming? I remember that you sort of made this big post about the release of the album. Um, did you did do that on September 10th? And then the NFTs came a month later?
Yeah, that's what happened. I waited, but I didn't tend to respect the dates I did set myself up initially, which was September 10th, because I felt the pressure of the. I wanted to be like that first guy, and I knew it was in the air, and I knew it was a day away until I could be beaten on on the finish line. And so I started to roll it out at my initial dates, but I couldn't force myself into making the NFTs because I realized at minimum the consequences of minting something I wouldn't want to have minted too early. So I was able to retain myself a little bit and play the time because I had already a lot of features to present, and the NFTs came kind of like the cherry on the top of the cake uh, in October. So in
Yeah.
the description says September, but I think if you look at the token minting, it's in October. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I think that you did it right. I think, and I remember, it was very exciting at the time. And the Others Die album was certainly the most, comprehensive and large scale album release I would say that occurred to that date, basically. Just the length of the album, the way that you sort of approached it in a comprehensive way, and also, the using Infinity and everything. I think it was really, you did it well. You did it correct, I would say. And just to give people a sense, so there was 14 tracks on the album, and you minted 5 editions for each track. So that was an interesting. Was there a particular reason for structuring it that way, where you had 5 editions per track?
Sure. I think I've never naturally been attracted by one-on-ones,
Mm,
just because I come from a place where I like music being distributed to millions of people. At least that's where I come from, and what I know, what I only knew before. The concept of selling a very scarce amount of music wasn't necessarily natural for me. So straight from the early days, I've always thought about this, how does this scale at mass scale, and what's the extent of what's the outlook of basically a mass scale uh, NFT system. The thing is, um, I still was curious to learn about. That's why also I said I got interested into the art world more in general, because I had basically no notions about how it it was like to be an artist in that world, where you make a painting, you only have one, and then you have to sell it, or if you want to make five, you have to make five duplicates, which all will be unique in their way unless you print them. But if you print them, they have less value. because it's not made of your hand, or all these types of considerations I had no idea about because the music that's not there simply. So I truly enjoyed learning all this process and learned a lot from it. And I integrated even all this side of business practice or knowledge in my research in general. So now I think of creating stuff like one-on-one, but it would be on particular occasions. I've made one or two, I think, already. I remember making a track that only Sugar Club owns. So I tried it, but it was never natural. But at the same time, I realized that a few things. Technical limitations first. So if you want to mint 1,000 tokens, basically at the time it was gas fee for every token. It still is, but there are some workarounds now. And I remember the gas contract on the Infinity contract cost me something like $4,100 to mint. So that was also an investment
Yeah, yeah.
to mint that album. I think totally it might have cost me just in gas for the 14 tracks, 5 edition each, so 70 NFT was total like $600 or $700. I think at one I minted them when it was something like 50 dollars per mint, something like that. So yeah, between 600 and 1,000. I don't remember exactly, but it was along those lines. And yeah, that was really an investment to be able to mint them. So you cannot go to infinity. So that was the first limitation, and the second one was finding the sweet spot between having something scarce and but still having some sort of distribution, like several copies that can navigate. And yeah, as I've decided to make each track one NFT, then that's how I split it, the thing in the end. So 5 edition for each track, because you could think of it in another way. I could have done the album and minted 70 edition of that same album if they were all minted within the same NFT, which is stuff that are now more possible to do. But yeah, at the time, that's just the best configuration I found.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's important for people to really understand just how much of a substantial investment that you had to make because of the gas costs at the time. We have layer twos now, and on things like Sound XYZ and such, it's pretty easy to do a layer two release with like 1,000 editions or something. It's pretty easy, but it's really interesting to look back at this release at the time and how they're all layer one editions. And so yeah, that's really interesting context. One thing I'm also wondering about the Others Die album is, so you describe it as a blockchain only album release experiment. Can you give the listeners a little more detail about sort of the bigger picture of the release? So you minted the NFTs. How would you describe the rest of this sort of experiment that you were doing with this album?
Right. Yes. So basically, when discovering I was enough deep in the blockchain to understand that I had enough tools to cover pretty much all sides of a music release for an artist. So distribution on streaming platform, distributions as NFTs, collaborations with splits, um, and communication throughout the social media. So there was various aspects, but the whole idea was to be 100% out of Web 2, and highlight the level of control that you can get as an independent artist using that technology. So I've put together this set of third parties because they they were, even though you are with your wallet and you mint your token and then you're independent with it, then as I'm not a developer, I still needed third party to do this. But as is 99.9% of artists across the world, so I thought this was a good time to highlight the fact that, hey, without being a developer, just you are just as a regular artist, these tools are now available to cover the full spectrum of what an artist would require to be 100% an independent, um, without the need for, um, like, you could be alone really, and control your catalog. So that was really the main point. I was using also CryptoVoxels for the release to highlight that there is not only Twitter and such. You can own your place in a digital space in which you can design it how you want and organize events. So that was part of the release as well. And yeah, really that's it. It was a way to incarn uh, sort of the total like going against the wind type situation, because at the time no one believed at all in any of this, and especially artists that were not aware of that technology, um, and had no idea of what it is, what it can do. They it I was I really wanted to put this character Mighty33 in a position of, yeah, actually going against the wind at all cost, and see what it does. Like, it was also for the statement, I believe, of just pushing the mentalities to make people realize that this is possible. And even if it wasn't a success, or if it was not uh, successful experiment as a whole, because some aspects did work over time, some didn't. Like, I've used, for example, this streaming platform called Emanate, but unfortunately today it is closed. And but the NFTs are still there. For example, NFT, the platform that I use to mint these NFTs, is closed as well, but the NFTs remain. The crypto voxel space still exists. So some things resisted time, some others didn't. But it was truly to make a statement, and also the space have so much to evolve in 4 years that, looking back at this project, it was that statement of being all against the wind. But I mean, now way better things are being done on an everyday basis.
Yeah, well, I really wanted to highlight this album release because I think it's so important, and it was for its time. Just so, I mean, even today, I think it's such a special release, and I encourage everyone to go back and listen to all the tracks. And to do you still have any of the editions left in your wallet, or are there?
Yes, I do. Um, I do have the majority of it because it didn't sold out. I think only something like a third of the total supply has been sold, for various reasons. The first is that I was not also the best in promotion, so I didn't really care too much to sold out or to make a successful um, business model. Uh, Again, it was more for the to incarn the statement rather than to make a business success of course, this is part of my exploration, and I'm studying still to this day ways to make things work in terms of communication and buys and just also how to connect really artists to their audience and like yeah, just trying to promote artists as they deserve and all that. So I've never been the best for this for my own self. I always prefer to highlight the work of other people, uh, but also, so yeah, I was not the best to promote it, but also I put a price that I've never changed, and that is not kind of accessible today. It's still zero point 0.5 ETH per track, from the last time
Right.
I listed them. And I think it's part of the statement just to say it was the price at the time, it's still the price today. It's Ethereum, no matter what, it won't change.
One
But
ETH equals one ETH.
yeah, that's what it is. But I did give away a couple of tokens to people I really love as well. Um, I remember dropping the price at one point to one person who just really wanted it, but didn't necessarily want to spend half a ETH. So it was me as well experimenting with, being like a local shop with its a regular customer base and different situations, and and I had this mindset from my dad to be, your regular shop, just human and not necessarily all, algorithm based business type thing. That's not how I look at things, even though I like to play with it, but it's not my main intention. So I have most
Yeah.
of the supply still, and I've been thinking of ways to maybe put it up again. I remember meeting like an auctioneer, a digital NFT auctioneer in Barcelona in 2023, with who I had the conversation and told him about the album, and that there was a first album on a custom contract I made in the beach, and it somehow it feels like there were dollars in his eyes. The more I was talking, I could see it. I've never followed along, but he definitely told me like, "Hey, this can be option, like no doubt." But yeah, maybe I'll do it one day, or I don't know. I like also to keep a bit of my supply for occasions like gifts or whatnot, because I enjoy doing this as well. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
never really sold out anything either. I think I never had this intention or just fire in me to. I mean, up to this day, I'm still working on it for future projects. But to really, you know, hammer everyone to sell out, like
Yeah. No, it's watch this, I encourage everyone to take a look, I just the memories and everything about it is really special to me as well. So I really love to have the chance to talk to you about all of this. One thing I'm curious about is so you did this experiment with this album, and did you ever, like with Genius Corp, or did you ever try to replicate this type of experiment with any other artist or anything? Or you know what I'm trying to ask? Like, did this go on
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
inspire other experiments?
This did, but to a very small extent locally. I mean, there was two worlds. There was the crypto art space, with which was not uh, hard to collaborate on the same wavelength of understanding of things. So this was the most natural way to go with collaboration, because you're talking to people who understands what we are going through. Uh, but when it came to local environment and the artists we were working with Genius Corp, of course I was talking to them about it, but I again, I'm not in. I've never forced anyone, or I don't want to sound too much like the the crazy guy or what. So I try to always be as rational as possible, and just
Yeah.
my ear is trained to hear when I don't know when someone is not receptive or doesn't want to or is not even on their agenda ever or they are curious or what. So I followed that instinct, and for those who are curious, um, there is mainly two artists with who we made things. The first one is Kazlab, who truly dived with me into all of this, and she had nothing to lose. She was super curious, and so she created her own character in the metaverse, and for quite some time released many NFTs and 5 EPs that all have different uh, interesting aspects in terms of Web3. But there's a second one with who we experimented a little bit, but it's a Latin artist, and there isn't much of an audience. And he also was not in the area on an everyday basis available for going in the trenches. So he had this regular life, and once in a while, he was curious to try one NFT, or but he didn't really follow that much along because in his path it was not necessarily matching yet. So, but some others we definitely talked about it a lot, and the time also would put me in a position where I was what I was saying to them back then resonates more now. Uh, so I'm very patient, and I know it will ultimately be more natural to talk about it around me. I've looked for music NFTs artists in France, and there is, but not a lot. I mean, in terms of the really with the ethos, like you said, there are people working on NFTs in music in France, but they you can hear that I'm not interested in them. Uh, for because they're not here for the right reasons, and they are all grifting, and so and they are doing terrible choices that will probably lead them to problems. But no, there is one that I want to shout out, which is Volt 46. I don't know if you have seen his music, but he makes great techno music, very minimalistic and purist. He's a sound purist, so I enjoy people who go 200% into what they like. And he's been one of the earliest people who I connected with, who's in France and who's become a good friend. But each time we see each other, we're like, damn, we still feel a bit alone around here. And because we both are going quite far into the thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Um,
No, I tried, and maybe to just complete that answer, like locally, I had the occasion to participate in some talks about music NFTs with the wrong people, and I really felt like the elephant in the room. First, to give you maybe an idea of the situation, everyone I've met in Paris or in France about music NFT, I've presented my work to most of the people. So I've tried to make it clear that I was serious about the evolution of music and that I inputted serious work into the thing. Um, but it passed over the head of pretty much everyone to the point where one day there was a discussion about music NFT specifically in one of the places in Paris that was brought together by the crypto art Parisian community. So really the place to be in Paris for crypto artists with ethos and that knows what's going on, but not only, also bringing a new crowd of various level of people, like investors, artists, um, government, and all that type of crowd. Uh, so they organized regularly talks about different topics about NFTs and such. And one day there was one focused on music, and the guy who organized this knows the work uh, I'm doing, but invited me to not to talk, but to ask interesting questions to the panel. So I thought the position was kind of interesting. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna, because I like the guy. I came in and I was like, I'm gonna ask some interesting questions. But the panel was one guy from Sony Music who is 25 years old and hyper proud of being in his position. Um, that came to talk about how Sony is approaching music NFTs. Uh, Another guy started a startup, to sell equities of streaming shares
Okay.
of of catalog strictly French hip hop. So I like French hip hop and the people producing it, but they have no idea what blockchain is, and they tend to be more attracted to money than they are to music in general. They are doing music for money, most unfortunately, and so well, all kind of situation and people that were discussing music NFT with proudness, but only not a good vision. I mean, and I was there to ask interesting questions. So at one point, I felt like maybe I'm there to also represent myself and what I live, what I know. So I started to ask questions at one point, and I think they quickly understand that I know what I was talking about. But my point was being something like, you know, NFTs is to music what Bitcoin is to banks. It's to, free yourself from the centralized world and be able to build on it like a program, like a software. And you cannot project your intentions that are not aligned with the way it works uh, just because you want it. It's not going to work. You can think that you're going to do this with NFTs, but not this. For example, the guy from Sony was making a speech where he was super proud that they're going to sell tickets as NFTs, merch as NFTs, all sort of, uh, worthless tokens, so to speak. But when it came to the master of the tracks, the main masters that artists can own by minting their NFTs themselves, he made an ugly face where it was like, no, the masters are not even a discussion at Sony ever and will ever be. You can buy our shitty, merch digital token that will be tied to Taylor Swift. Sure, buy this, thousands of them, but the master track, you know,
Yeah.
it's not even not. Let's not even talk about it.
No, that's interesting, that were able to witness that. And so, yeah, and that's what makes our space special. I feel like, I think it feels, even today, it feels distinct to sort of come from the crypto art, crypto music school of things. It feels like it's a special skill set to have. Um, One other question I had about Others Die actually is, On October 18th, 2020, you minted the Others Die drum kit NFT. Can you tell us about that NFT a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's the continuation of exploring how to make derivatives around the work, and also to highlight what you can do with NFTs. So this in particular was an unlockable, which was a thing I've never really experimented consciously with. It's not like the unlockable of the audio. I see it very differently, because here it's like more so like buying a sample pack or a plugin or something where you buy and then you get the full content after. Of course, there is a teaser that um, describe what there is in the pack, or you can also listen to the album to have an idea of how it sounds. To So yeah, it was really just to make a derivative concept, and yeah, have fun with it. But one particular story with it was that once I minted it, so a few people collected. Uh, it was cool, but I decided that as I've made a bigger supply, I could also use it to gift people I like. But also, I've realized that there was a time where celebrities or people that are known to be good in their field came into the space, and once there is someone a little noticeable, you the rumors were the word on the street was that you find it, you find the wallet, and there is this producer, um, which I can name, which is Illmind, uh, which is a famous producer in the United States, I believe, uh, who is specialized also in sample business, in sample pack business. So I've sent it. Once he created his wallet, the wallet was all dirty because it was all not edited on OpenSea, for example. So you really had the raw address. A few tokens which you could see were dry tokens, stuff like that. So I thought, oh, this guy is in the sample pack business. I'm gonna send him the pack uh, as an invitation, sort of, or just a highlight of, hey, you can do sample packs as NFTs. But long story short, he burned the pack. Then he edited his OpenSea page, and then he launched his own NFT pack. Uh, he could have kept the token. I have no idea. I think he just maybe didn't even realize what it was, and he wanted his profile to be all clean, and maybe threw to the trash everything that he didn't really understand, or or I don't know, or maybe to don't leave trace of industry spying. I don't know, but yeah, that was funny for me to witness. Really, the burn move. I was like, why? This is not necessitated, but why not?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Wow. So jumping ahead a little bit, on November 16th, 2020, you released a track called Nifty Way on Known Origin. Um, and I just want to read the description a little bit because I think it's kind of a nice
Hmm.
snapshot of the time. And it says, so the description of this track says, this song is an ode to the early NFT community. Every lyric is a reference to crypto art stories that occurred in the midst of the 2020 pandemic. Um, During that time, artists across the world understood that they were about to take back the power and shine like never before in a fair and transparent way. And then you sort of list a lot of artists that inspired the track. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that track?
It was spontaneous. That's what I prefer really when creating, to get as close to as being spontaneous, and that's one thing the blockchain truly is as close to how I like it. In terms of even when you distribute on streaming platforms, still nowadays you have a delay of 2 3 days until your track is reviewed, everything is cleared, the distribution goes well to 50 plus platforms, all synchronized in in the same date. You often have to look at ideally 2 weeks if you want your thing to be well synchronized everywhere before you release it. Now DistroKid do it within 2 days, and that's one of the most performant release in streaming distribution that I know. But still, that's far from spontaneous as it is on SoundCloud. Because as home producer growing with the internet, we start to get used to distributing a post whenever we feel like. And blockchain allowed me that. So surfing on the wave of the others die project, meeting new people and vibing with everyone. It was just spontaneous collaboration that were following a new set of inspiration of things to experiment. There were a new platform coming out. I was not like known origin is the platform where you had to be validated um to mint on. So not everyone could mint on it. And I remember subscribing, and one day I got the validation. So I was all excited. I wanted to mint something on non-origin. Also because they were the only one platform that had the split feature implemented straight up. It was up to 2 people by split, but still it was the only place where you could do it without asking the permission to. And spontaneously, when I created this track while discovering one of the crypto artists I've met on Twitter and Crypto Voxels, which is Samet Tulsa, uh, who is Turk. And I remember listening to his SoundCloud and hearing this track instrumental that it composed, and it immediately inspired me. I don't know, something to create something with it. And I wanted like a snapshot to take a picture of that time and everything I was living. So the lyrics are about the fact that we are going to the moon on the nifty way, and and all the lyrics are descriptions of situations I was witnessing on Twitter. So some drama, some um, behaviors, stuff like that. And we made the track very quickly and distributed it in the meantime.
Yeah, it's a really great track, and I encourage people to go listen to it. It's kind of a special time in music NFTs. I would say, all through 2020, really special time in my memory. Um, but yeah, so the next mint of yours that I can see is in February 2021. Jumping ahead a little bit, you made this OpenSea collection called "For Your Profit." And
Hmm.
you made a track called "Strong Hands." Do you remember this? Do you remember sort of what you were thinking when you put this out?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see it on the visual that goes with it. There's a audio. It's an audio visual loop that I've created in pixel art. As I always was interested in pixel art to create some, but I had no idea how to create it at the time. So I figured a way, made this visual, and on the character, which I should have made with the helmet of Mighty33, but it's too late. There's a jacket written on it, WSB. So it was at the time of the Wall Street bet situation with GME, with GameStop, where a bunch of retail traders won over the Wall Street traders who were shorting GME, and they earned most of the retail investor earned a lot of money thanks to it, and the GameStop company were saved. Um, so if you don't know that story, I recommend you learn about it. But witnessing that it was something in the traditional world, and I could feel the sense of where we are right now with the blockchain is going to be this everyday times 100, and this type of situation where David versus Goliath can truly exist in the decentralized world, and I would love to see the people manifest through this technology in such a way. And since then, there has been a couple of examples of such where the tech truly gives power to the people if used in a good way. And that was really what inspired this track, and the title that just says "strong hands." The lyrics are a little bit gibberish, but I kept it like that because it just sounded well, and I recorded it in one time. I just had kind of the hook saying "strong hand," we got strong hands, but but the rest is a bit gibberish. I don't really I see sound as sound. To me, if an alien can enjoy it, whatever language it is, whatever distinct you are in your language or accent you have or whatever, if it sounds good, it sounds good. That's just how I look at music to the simplest degree. So I don't have problems releasing gibberish lyrics. Um, and even more now with AI music, which we haven't even talked about. uh, I'm just looking at sound like sound, and I like to make some cryptic cues here and there. So strong hands, the visuals, some phrases that you can get. It's just enough to give the sense of what it is. And to give a word on the For Your Profit collection, it was a continuation of experimenting and realizing that in a world where there's a couple of billions people on chain, you can live off of 1% profit as an artist. And so I've put the royalties at 1%. And there's two tracks on that collection, right? The Strong Hands
Yeah.
and what's the other one?
It was minted later. I'm
It's NFA. I think it's
Yes,
NFA.
yes.
Yeah. So two
Not
different experiments.
yeah, not financial advice.
Yeah. So yeah, Strong Hands was minted as a one-on-one. That's the only that's where I've made that experiment, and I've tried to set it as an auction, which I've never had tried or never had the habit to even think about it in terms of music. So I tried it, and that's Sugar Club who collected it because he sniped he realized the occasion and collected it. But then the second track on this collection is NFA, and which is a track that I distributed for free. That kind of like an airdrop. I asked people for their wallet address, and I sent it to anyone who sent me their address. So the logic of the collection basically is to say these tokens make money off of them. So in the case of Sugar Club, who collected it for cheap, obviously you can flip it and make money off of it. With me taking only 1% on the transaction, so the less percentage you take, the more it's beneficial for the buyer who can, if he wants to flip it. But if you do this as an artist 1,000 times, maybe those 1% are just enough to live, basically. And for the NFA track, the same idea. It's larger distribution, trying with larger distribution IDs like airdropping, and of course you can flip it with the same low percentage. So I have 1% as well on that contract. So that's why it's called For Your Profit. At one point, OpenSea took it down because obviously the name was not mm, sounding right to them, and they thought it was scammy, which I understand. But I had to write to them to explain them that no, this is not a scam. This is conceptual art, and please, can you put it back up? And they did. So that was cool.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that they took it down. That's wild. But
There
yeah.
was a wave of cleaning at one point where they had to make like a big cleaning, and everything that with the word profit were written in it was not looking good. Yes.
Oh, I see. Well, that's great context. Thank you. Um, Something else I noticed in that month, it looks like you minted a music video that appears to be for Genius Corp, maybe called Focus Unfocus by Sad and Solo. That was on February 19th, 2021. Was this like were you trying to get Genius Corp releases going again at this time?
Yeah, and to be clear, it's still not going to this day. I've tried many experiments because for me, the ultimate goal is to be able to find a workflow that works for an organization like us, which produces music with multiple people on a regular basis and would love to distribute them online. Uh, so I've tried many times to think about it, but I still don't have the best answer I'm really looking for. So Saden Solo is one of the artists we love to work with, and we exposed him to NFTs quite early, because he's coming from a background also of he's a good geek. All his lyrics talks about graphic cards or stuff like that. He's quite good and funny with it. So we thought that it would click quite easily, but it turned out that he was really interested in it. So we tried that mint, for example. But in the end, he didn't necessarily found the time to like create his own wallet, learn the basics. But also he realized that his audience that he already created, and I think this is where the problem lies in this particular case. He already acquired an audience that wouldn't be ready to switch to Web3 at all. And even though he himself was aligned with the technology, he felt that his audience was really not, and he couldn't. He didn't feel like giving it some time to dive in really. Uh, so we accepted to make a try with this token and make one, but I've never felt that comfortable promoting it either because I would love it to be done in the context where everyone is aware and we know what we're doing and all that, and we use the proper tools as well to split and do everything we need. So
Right.
there has been a couple of attempts like that, and even the Genius Corp contract. I've looked at it in so many different ways, but I, in a sense, it kind of make me think of your initiative with the Forever Library, but with our specifics, where it would be our curation of a particular music production process, but a place where we could mint and easily split between all actors, which would be in a sort of closed environment on our contract or on a contract that would give value to the artists that are on it. And and I don't know when it comes to minting the contract. I think I've minted 10 Genius Corp contracts so far, here and there, but none have really been used at all. Like they all have one token or two, and they are pretty much lost. I mean, even for us, we don't even consider them that much. Or I would prefer them to not exist today because they are. I'm happy they exist, but they are useless. There are more artifacts of the time. uh, but it is ultimately the goal to be able to create a platform that have Web3 capabilities and allow us as a private curation uh, entity to host music basically on chain, and not um, have it over sound or over a different platform or over catalog or audios or um, I would like to create an ecosystem where the artists have their track minted on our contract, but at the same time, technically, I won't go too much into the details, but it's not that easy in terms of how I imagine it, because I would like things to be fluid, but not allowing anyone to mint on it. The minting process would still be ours, uh, in conjunction with the artist. It's like the PRO. I see it kind of like that, the performing right organization. Uh, when you do a track, you have a moment where you put up a paper with the information and you give it to the performing right organization, and that is settled, and then everyone can do its life. I see it kind of the same. Like, we need in our process a place where I don't depend on a third party platform to mint our music, but also provide for the artists a sort of umbrella of value brought by the aura of James Corp. And also, I think we have a good potential to experiment in that way, but I would really love it to be done in a good way. And I'm not rushing anything. I've been experimenting for long, um, but yeah, that's gonna come. But in the meantime, all these tokens are kind of um, mistakes, learning mistakes.
Okay. Well, no, I mean it's interesting. I think there's a way to think of them as relics of experimentation. So if
Yes.
we can view it charitably. Uh, but no, that's great context. The next sort of major milestone I was hoping to talk about is Token Jukebox, which happened in April 2021, where you and Connie Digital were part of the launch of Async Music and their brand new programmable music experiments at the time. Um, it seems, from my vantage point, like it was a huge undertaking. So, what was the story about how that came about, if you don't mind telling it? And when did it start? When did you start working on that?
Well, first off, if Connie, you listen, big hello. But it is all thanks to Connie Digital, who had the alpha and the connection with Conlan and the builders of Async Music, to have the information that they were working on Async Music, this programmable uh, platform where you can create generative music. They were already doing it with visual art, where you can create multiple layers, and then the collectors, as they buy it, uncover different layers or can switch them, and do programmable art. The thing and the real revolution here is that it never happened in music. There never existed a medium that was able to display such programmable features in music, uh, and uh, and yeah, so that was super exciting, and um, I've always been super inspired by Kuni Digital. He's one of the first person I've came across in this space, and was the best example I have could find of someone who incarns the same thing I was looking to incarn, like the full digital lifestyle, and yeah, so I contacted him to get to know him, and we started doing collaboration. I invited him on the Other Style album, and from then we exchanged on a regular basis to follow the space, basically, and exchange news and create together, have fun. Uh, so when the async music platform dropped, they invited Connie to be part of the alpha drop, the first release, the first batch of work created with async music, and he said that to me and invited me to collaborate with him to create this piece. So we chatted for a while to envision what it could look like, and so we did some math to figure out what was doable, and what was um, yeah, achievable for us as a two-person band, to create a programmable piece with the different layers. So we could async didn't have necessarily any limitations, so we could create as much layers as we want. Um, but we had to keep it realistic. Where in this particular situation, we have a lyricist and an interpret, uh, and on the other hand, a composer who makes the instrumental. And we've figured that what is doable for us that can be interesting without being too complex either, because we only have a certain extent of energy to put into it. So we decided on a math of he worked on three different lyrics track and voice track, and I worked on three different instrumentals. Three times three makes nine different versions possible, which to us was enough to illustrate the tool, and that's what we started working on. So I've made something like 10 different instrumentals, and we ended up choosing three. Um, he made the lyrics and recorded them in studio. Then on my end, I kind of mixed the tracks just to make sure that everything would sound well. He created the visuals and the layers of the visuals, and then we packed all that together, and that gave us the token jukebox, which the name and the concept was really his idea, Connie's idea, to highlight as well um, a milestone in reference to the history of music, saying that this medium, async music in particular, looks like a technology that already existed, the jukebox, but is its digital form, where the listener can program and choose the parts he wants and interact with the music itself, in a new way, truly in a way that never existed before. And since then, unfortunately, async music and async in general closed as well, which was heartbreaking. But I know they're working. They might be working on new stuff, so I'm very excited. But this idea of programmable music now really stayed. I felt like many initiatives started to take this route. They are not all looking like async music, but that's even more interesting because there's not only the async music way. There are so many ways to make programmable music. One great example we have right now is with Kane Mayfield, the Ides of March, if you've seen this project, which is very inspired from async music, but not dependent on it. And it's now you can do this sort of locally if you program it well. You can make such things with HTML NFTs, where you can make programmable music, and shout out to Ken Mayfield as well on that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it was such an amazing, release. Just everything about it, everybody that was involved. And could you just explain quick, like the disc aspect of it? So, or the records, like the way that people would interface with this. There was like the master and the layers, which were I think for Token Jukebox were all collected by Basilius, right? the sort of
Yes.
well-known collector, and I think it was a really successful auction as well. But then anyone could purchase records. There was like silver, gold, and platinum records, and you could like record states of the master as audio NFTs. And there was like many of them. Would you add anything to that, or did I pretty much describe what it was?
No, that was pretty much it. And yeah, big shout out to Basilius as well, who really made that auction successful very quickly. I was part of the mania of the time. I didn't. Both Connie and I did not realize all that was happening. We just did the job as best as we could and gave it to async. And I think we didn't expect really nearly anything. And even I think the the I mean, pricing of art at this time in general was also a statement, I believe, throughout many crypto artists. And this is something that I respect a lot and taught me a lot as well. But it's a position that was quite aggressive, right? When I think of Rodness, for example, which I love, this particular aggressivity when it comes to price is really the statement of, I don't care. This is what I believe it's worth. And it's not even a scam because I know where we are for real. Uh, then can you have that as well? And I think it was really without any expectation. It is just that there are collectors like Basilius, uh, which I love, that aligns with that ethos and truly also sends message to the entire market saying, yes, that aggressivity, you are right, because this is because we both know where we're at, right? And I can, you can, so let's do it, right? And let's not even think about it. It is the
Yeah.
statement. And I think humanly, humbly, we didn't necessarily realize that this could even click, and it did. And it was really the magic of that era, of that moment, where every day we had signs like that that would truly show everyone that the space, how much the space is alive, even though we are not that much people, but it was really aggressive in a good way. Not in the way we see today with meme coins and scammers all around, but there was not that much of that at the time. Of course, there was the DeFi and stuff, but that was kind of separated. It was not yet too much merged into NFTs because it was the early days of PFPs, maybe a little bit, but there was still some creativity there. The thing is, it was really magical to feel that connection to such a high level, all-star game type mentality. Like, we are all conscious of what we are doing, and we are okay with doing it, and we leave a trace. We want. It's like the Beeple sale. It's not even for the price, it's for writing the line in history. And what I truly enjoyed about the crypto art people I've met is that they all have that mentality, that courage to make statements and write down history on an everyday basis without thinking too much about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I'm kind of struck at this point in our conversation about how, the history of crypto music to me, it feels so influenced and intertwined with the community and the principles of crypto art as well. It feels like such an important aspect to this story. And in terms of these NFTs themselves, these, the token jukebox NFTs, it's, I guess, the beauty, but also the challenge with NFTs is that all of these NFTs are still there. And I own disc. I think I collected records from the original drop as well, and they're all still there. But it's the front end, which is the tricky thing. But that could always
Mhm.
be put up again, and I'm sure it will. So um, I encourage everybody to go check these out. And so, at this point in the conversation, we're Token Jukebox is in, mid 2021. Obviously, there's been a lot of years since then. As we sort of finish this out, are there any other highlights that you would, that come to mind that you'd like to talk about? Or, we can also talk about what you're working on now. I'll sort of leave it up to you at this point. But I definitely would want to make sure we don't skip anything that you were hoping to talk about. So.
Sure, thanks. But there's a couple of things I would love to mention here so that we have it all in one place. I think the first thing we can mention is the Metaverse Music Festival, briefly,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
um, which was an incredible sort of Woodstock situation that happened in the metaverse, and where it was 72 hours live stream nonstop of music artists and concerts all across different metaverse, and all organized decentrally by the community itself. So it was also kind of a statement, because first we realized that it was possible to do so with the available tools. Um, and I've met My World, an incredible artist that became, you know, super fan, and with who we're working with very, very closely today on some exciting things that I will not disclose too much yet, but keep up on it. At the time we started the show to talk about music and blockchain every week, and sort of discuss all the news that were coming in on an everyday basis. the the future of the music NFT and music and blockchain in general. And at one point, it made us really vibe with the community of people who were, really around crypto voxels, on the minting platforms, and the really 2021 community. And we started to realize that we could organize such an event, live stream that is also, you can access it in the metaverse directly. We had enough people in the community that owned a parcel that could contribute to have enough stages to put artists and live streams on them for a long time. And when we made the call for artists to participate, we ended up with enough material to stream for 3 days nonstop. And and we took the challenge, and that's what we did. So there was no intervention of any company, like the metaverse owners themselves, or it was all organized by artists uh, and landowners, and people who were good to participate in this organization, who either had background in music festival organization, or so we had really high skilled people within the community able to manage such an organization. And we created like a decentralized living hive that were guided toward really manifesting this event. And it was a success because we didn't sleep much, but we really put that up. And there's replays of this on Genius Corp, on the crypto music history page, uh, where you can relive those moments or have an idea of what it looked like. It was sort of like a multi-screen, with the chat on the right, multiple stages on screen. We were switching. That was super fun. But yeah, so that was one thing, one big moment that happened in time, and that was not even possible to like recreate a second time for many reasons. But I'm sure such things will exist times 10 in the future, and we were really like sort of the first to do something like this at this scale. Um, and that was really cool. But one of the last thing I would love to mention is something that goes along the lines of the future. I would like to shout out Skrilla for the way he explores things, because at the end of the day, that's what I connect with the most in terms of how things are done, because it's as close as pureness as it can be in terms of what the text allows to and all the consequences, of certain choices of certain tech can lead you to. And I think exploring on Bitcoin is the ultimate, time proof uh, chain to work with. And also, it is quite interesting to work with, especially since there are ordinals and inscription, and especially recursive inscriptions, which allow you to create the Internet of Bitcoin, which is a concept that really strikes me a lot. Uh, Shout out to Bitoshi as well, who created the bitmaps and the metaverse on Bitcoin. So, but you realize that so much can be done with files that are 1 to 3 kilobytes. If they are just well thought enough and smart and carefully conveyed, with a little bit of code and creativity, you don't need extra fancy features and stuff and whatnot. If your goal is to be time proof for the rest of humanity, for the future of humanity, then this is where things gotta be. Um, it comes with restrictions, but that's where creativity has to come into place to bypass these restrictions and what can be done with it, because there's not much research on Bitcoin, because there's no incentive for anyone to develop on Bitcoin. So it's always going slower than anything else. But somehow, in the end, it always appears more um, interesting and like strong, like secure, and everything that comes with it. So I'm studying on that, and I had some. I would love to experiment with it in my own way, not necessarily to develop anything that scales or what, but I just know and realize that there's this opportunity to create with it, and I'm interested in it because more and more I go into learning uh, coding and stuff like that. So programmable, even simple player, HTML, stuff like that can be simple to do, but cool to have for eternity on Bitcoin. And but I'm both interested in mass scale adoption and something like what Skrilla does, and with Bitcoin and the Ordinals community and Ken Mayfield or Bitoshi. So yeah, it's just two sides of two ways of looking at things. Uh, in the meantime, there's the AI music that is coming into play and is a tool with which I always wanted or dreamed to play with. It's like Midjourney. Uh, like I've always dreamed of something where you think of something and then it appears, and then beyond all the critics everyone may have with such technology, like I'm 200% diving into it and enjoying it, because it's something I always dreamt of having into my hands, and now it's in my hands. I can believe it's in my hands, and so I don't even know what to do with it. but slowly I know, because I'm experimenting so much that down the line there are some artifacts that stays in my mind and that I want to share, and then I'm like, this is truly unique, or this is truly me, or this is, this truly looks like a creation and not something where I just rolled the dice and created a song with it. There's definitely melodies that stays in my mind, stuff like that. So it's fun to experiment with it. And one situation I'm foreseeing, and I'm kind of worried, but not worried, I don't know, about for the future of music, is like, what even is music at this point with such tools like AI music, where, to give you an example, there's one track from the last album of Skrilla, which is called Everything Fake, that I become in love with. Um, I didn't expect it to necessarily. Always curious to listen to the project, and but realized that during the Christmas time, where I disconnected, logged off completely the internet for a couple of weeks, this song stayed in my mind over and over, like any song you would like does with your brain. There's just music and something you like. It comes back and you think about it, and that's it. But now with AI music, as this track was created with AI music, I thought, and this aligns with permissionless music vision on the blockchain, where you don't have to ask a composer if you can sample his music. You, in a dream world, would have a ledger, sort of big database of music, where you can ask the permission, or even not necessarily ask the permission, but you sample this music and you automatically split the smart contract of this music allows you to split 50% with it if you remix it, stuff like that. So permissionless music is a music economy where you build like Legos, and the infrastructure is ready for that, and you don't need to ask the permission anything. And if someone wants you to ask permission, then they state it, and it's okay. Everyone can input the rules they want into their catalog and allow or not permissionless music, so that we finally get rid of the issue of copywriting and lawsuits and whatnot, because kids were having fun in their room and just made a hit because they sampled the cool track. This should never happen ever again. In the digital world, this is something I can't believe can continue to happen. So, but with AI music, that's even more complex, because you can take one track and make 1,000 version or different version of it, and that's what happened with this track, Everything Fake, which I like. But when I was hearing it, I sort of was thinking, oh, I want to compose around it somehow. I want to hear like a verse. I want to hear like a female voice. I'd like to try. And in the meantime, I was looking at a documentary about, Frank Sinatra, My Way, this music,
Uh-huh.
this intergenerational music hit. And, they say that this track has over 4,000 official variation released by the music industry. And so putting that into correlation, I'm thinking with AI, if I have a hit record inside, I can pretty much release it with the 4,000 versions straight up. I don't have to wait for 50 years for them to be produced. I can pretty much produce them at launch. And if that's a hit, that's a hit. You know what I mean? It's this track is a hit. And to me, any country would love it, any culture would love it. It's just the matter of, it's a good song. So whatever the recording in that case, it doesn't matter anymore. It's a good song, and whatever version would be produced of it would be instantaneously recognizable that it's this song, and that it's has the same power whether it's played over a piano or over a violin, or sang by a played by an orchestra or whatever. you will be able to recognize it because this song has soul. And with AI, it's even more easy because I put the track into it and started working, and I generated over 500 versions, and then I bookmarked like something like 80 versions, and I'm and it's a vertigo process because you're wondering if you're crazy or if you're the next big thing. Um, and yeah, so that was just to describe a little bit where I stand right now. And so that's this kind of exploration. But with all that, I'm trying to build up an album, and it's getting more complex to find the answer of how to make the choices for an album, because at this point I would be even eager to release the 80 versions of whatever I have, of whatever tracks I'm working on. So I'm thinking programmable music could be an option. I'm thinking I could make a selection of 10 or 20 or 30. I could make different volumes. I could simply share them on Suno because that's also a social app. And there's so many options that you find yourself a bit paralyzed or clueless about what's the best scenario here. But ultimately, deep inside, I would like to sort of release everything, or at least the majority of it. It's just kind of complex, so I think it's going to be progressive and depending my mood. Uh, and I'm releasing a track. I prepared the track to be released now, so
Oh, great.
we can announce that open mint. But yeah, it's gonna be on my mood to release all of this progressively, and also I'm taking my time because I really want to design that Mighty33 character as something with a personality. Even thinking of those AI agents to come into play with that, maybe. But yeah, visuals as well. I would love to work on 3D and stuff like that. Create an environment, create an avatar, and half human, half a little bit stuck in the digital world, and making hybrid music AI real with collaborations or with fake ghosts, and and yeah, that's pretty much where we are at, and something very exciting with my world as well in the pipelines in the field of video games and music and NFTs. So yeah, I'm very excited about this as well, and I want to shout out him for his work. And before we close, I would also like to shout out everyone in the music community, and everyone who supported my work, who had fun banter with me, and yeah, and who inspired me so much, and that I keep respecting at the same level on an everyday basis, and following the work. And yeah, I'm always open to have fun and to play on the playground because that's my mentality, and I'll keep it as long as I can. And because I know it's not infinite, and I'm lucky to be in such a position to be where I want to be and be able to leave all these things at the front line. So yeah, I try to keep it simple and enjoy everything. So I'd like to thank everyone that
Yeah.
I know.
No, yeah. So that's beautifully said, and I'm definitely very excited to see your next steps and see everything that you're working on and releasing. Um, and I just really appreciate you going through all these stories, and it's brings back so many good memories for me. And the Mighty My show, it was always so fun to listen to you guys. And
Yeah, this is still online as well. Like I try to preserve it and put it available at least for anyone who would. That's a vibe for sure. But there's the kitchen as well. We haven't mentioned where it was basically a show where we created music live and minted it at the end of the show in that idea of spontaneity because we can. And yeah, so we made this show with My World, and basically it was a couple of hours long shows where we created live on live stream, and straight at the end of the live stream we create the cover with Midjourney and we mint it straight away, and we did that every week for 14 tracks, and that was a great experiment as well to play with in real time dynamics. With really something where you don't plan anything, and you be as hot as you can from the mine to the mint.
Yeah, that was yeah, I used to love those. Yeah, the kitchen. Everyone should go check out those tracks. That was all. Yeah, that was a very fun release that you guys did. Series of releases. So, is there at this point any other things you want to shout out or plug, or have we covered the gamut?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything. I think I can say that you can find all these links on the Genius Corp website, whether it's my work as Mighty33 or collaboration as a producer, or um, or the Crypto Music Museum, the kitchen, and the MVMF, the Metaverse Music Festival. All these links are available on Genius Corp. So if you want to dig, that's where to go. But also, yeah, I would love to encourage every newcomer who's learning about this technology, this history, this artists who get will discover all that, to take your time. But this is really worthful and hyper symbolic. This is super powerful if you understand the dynamics of it. Don't let people tell you how to make your NFTs. Just learn yourself. Take the time, experiment with it. There's ways to minimize the cost of your experiments today, so you don't lose too much money before knowing what you need to do. But that's something I'd like to do. So plan to work on an introduction course, something like that, for music artists. So it's on my to-do list somewhere to work a little bit on that. But something, an introduction, simple, and yeah, how to approach this, and yeah, simple course.
That's great. Yeah.
So yeah,
That's really exciting, and yeah, I'll include links to these things in the description of the podcast. And so, yeah,
and also I encourage all newcomers to check out your work with the music NFT in general, and as an artist also. Because yeah, without you, the work I've been doing for the crypto museum, for example, wouldn't even be possible. And also, you inspired me a lot as an artist with your music, because that's really unique, and also visually, and the music. So yeah, in case if you're listening and you don't know, yeah, check out your work, the Studio Novo and Music NFT Archive, and the ecosystem that will grow with it from now on.
well,
Like, I
that's
truly respect your dedication. That's rare, and yeah, love that.
that really means a lot. I really appreciate that, and no, likewise. I mean, you've inspired me at so much of my journey as well, and so it's been truly such a pleasure to walk through this history with you. I've really enjoyed it a lot. And so, unless there's anything else, I'll say, Mighty
Yeah,
33, thank you for joining Music NFT Archive.
thank you so much, and yeah, definitely down also to, yeah, continue this work. That's super exciting. So yeah, thank you very much, and for anyone listening, enjoy, and see you in the metaverse, baby. That's what I say in the nifty way song. But yeah,
Yes. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Please follow Music NFT Archive on X, Twitter, and subscribe to Music NFT Archive on YouTube. We'll see you next time.